Living in Sunnyside Estates was never my dream, but the location made sense. Close enough to work to keep my commute reasonable, and surrounded by peaceful walking trails that were perfect for Maverick, my service dog. Maverick is a golden retriever, calm, disciplined, and unfailingly loyal. He helped me manage my PTSD, a lingering scar from my years serving overseas. He's always by my side, always wearing his vest, always alert. And thanks to the Americans with Disabilities Act, I know the laws protecting service animals like him better than most people know their own addresses. I never expected I'd have to quote those laws to my HOA president. The first time I met Karen Whitfield, she was clutching a clipboard like it was a weapon and wearing a scowl that looked like it had been carved into her face. She introduced herself with sharp precision, making sure I understood she was the president of the HOA. "I don't believe I approved a dog in this community," she said, eyes narrowing as she glared at Maverick, who sat perfectly still at my side. I remained calm. Maverick is a service dog, not a pet. He's protected under federal law, specifically the ADA. She huffed, muttered something about people always finding loopholes, and walked off. I should have taken that as the warning it was. Over the following weeks, the harassment began, thinly veiled as official notices. The first claim I grasped was half an inch too long. The second objected to my mailbox, which was apparently the wrong shade of black. The third accused me of violating garbage regulations because my trash can was visible from the street for exactly 45 minutes after collection. Each notice was signed by Karen in loopy, exaggerated cursive, ended with a smiley face that felt more hostile than friendly. I complied with every request, hoping to avoid conflict, but I knew deep down this was only the beginning. Then came the HOA meeting. Karen proposed a new regulation. All animals, including service animals, must be registered with the HOA and wear board-approved identification tags. When I raised my hand to point out that this directly violated the Americans with Disabilities Act, she cut me off mid-sentence. "Federal laws don't override community standards," she snapped. The room grew tense. A few neighbors looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. After the meeting, Karen approached me in the parking lot. She leaned in close and whispered, "If you want to be difficult, I can be difficult too." Her breath smelled like stale coffee and spite. That weekend, I was sitting on my porch enjoying the quiet morning. Maverick lay at my feet, tail flicking gently as I read the newspaper. The sun was warm, the air peaceful, until a shadow crossed my lawn. Karen stood at the edge of my yard, dressed in her usual khaki shorts and a pastel polo shirt, holding a spray bottle. "Your dog is in violation of the new pet ordinance," she announced loudly, making sure neighbors could hear. "No HOA identification." I stayed seated and kept my tone steady. Maverick is a service animal. The HOA can't require special tags. It's a violation of federal law. And that rule hasn't even taken effect yet. Her face flushed crimson. "I'm tired of you military types thinking you're above the rules," she snapped, stepping closer. "If you won't comply, I'll handle it myself." Before I could react, she raised a spray bottle and blasted Maverick in the face with some kind of liquid. Maverick yelped and recoiled, pawing at his eyes. I jumped to my feet, stepping between them, heart pounding. "What the hell did you just spray on him?" I demanded. "Just vinegar and water," she said with a smug smile. "It won't hurt him. Maybe now he'll learn to respect authority." I was furious, but I didn't let it show. Military discipline held me steady. I took Maverick inside, rinsed his eyes gently and thoroughly. He was shaken, and the solution had clearly irritated him, but thankfully, there was no lasting damage. Once I knew he was safe, I picked up the phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency?" The dispatcher asked. "I need to report an assault," I said, "on my service dog. It's a federal offense." I explained everything clearly, noting that interfering with a service animal is not just wrong, it's illegal. The dispatcher took my information and assured me officers were on the way. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. I provided Maverick's service certification and training records, then pointed to Karen's house across the street. One officer stayed to take my statement. The other went to speak with her. From the window, I watched her argue, arms flailing, face twisted in indignation. The officer didn't seem moved. When both officers returned, one of them confirmed what I already suspected. Karen admitted to spraying your dog, he said, claimed she was enforcing HOA rules. The officers explained that Karen's actions weren't just misguided. They were criminal. Interfering with a service animal, they reminded her, is a federal offense under the Americans with Disabilities Act, carrying serious consequences, including steep fines and possible jail time. On top of that, what she had done to Maverick fell under state animal cruelty laws. Then came the question, would I be willing to press charges? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Karen was placed under arrest on the spot. The snap of the handcuffs was oddly satisfying. She shrieked all the way to the squad car, shouting threats about how she'd be evicted, how the entire neighborhood would turn against me. But the neighborhood was already watching and not in support of her. People had stepped outside to see what the commotion was about. One voice, quiet but clear, muttered, "She's finally gone too far." Another neighbor approached me afterward, visibly shaken but sincere. "I'm sorry," she said, "for not speaking up at the meeting. We've all been afraid of her for too long." I nodded, grateful. Maverick sat quietly by my side, composed once more, the model of calm and dignity. The legal process unfolded faster than I expected. Karen was charged with interference with a service animal, animal cruelty, and harassment. Her first court appearance was almost theatrical. She arrived in expensive clothes, flanked by a high-priced attorney whose confidence wilted as the evidence stacked up. The judge was unflinching. Reviewing the facts, he made one point especially clear. Community rules do not override federal law, particularly when it comes to disability accommodations. While Karen awaited trial, the HOA called an emergency meeting. This time, nearly everyone in the neighborhood showed up. I brought Maverick with me. He stayed by my side as always, a quiet but powerful reminder of what this was all about. The board's vice president, clearly rattled, stood and addressed the room. "We are calling for a vote of no confidence in Karen Whitfield's leadership. Her actions have exposed this community to serious legal risk." The vote was unanimous. Karen was removed from the board immediately. Someone had already taken the liberty of printing new nameplates for the table. Hers was missing. When the criminal case finally concluded, Karen pleaded guilty to a reduced charge to avoid a longer sentence. But the consequences still hit hard. 30 days in county jail, a $5,000 fine, 200 hours of community service at an animal shelter, and mandatory education on disability rights. As the sentence was read aloud, I watched her face cycle through denial, rage, and, finally, realization. She mumbled a weak defense. "I was just enforcing the rules." The judge leaned forward. "No, Miss Whitfield. The most important rule is to respect the law of the land, especially the laws that protect service animals and the people who depend on them." As bailiffs moved to escort her out, Karen glanced back. Our eyes met. The arrogance she once carried like armor was gone. In its place was a look of quiet defeat. She mouthed something that might have been, "This isn't over," but we both knew it was. Maverick sat beside me, alert and proud. I reached down and scratched behind his ears. He leaned into my hand with quiet affection, a gesture of comfort, trust, and loyalty that spoke louder than words. Together, we had weathered the storm and come out stronger.